we'll probably take a step back, and I think there's a lot to unpack. It was quite a dense outcomes. If you look in terms of outcome, there were 16 outcomes. There were 3 signed documents that came out of it, and there were a number of MOU among the corporate, the companies on both sides. So there is a lot to unpack, and if you want to look at the key takeaways, we'll have to probably step back a little. We have to look at when the 2 countries kind of set up. So I'll go back to 1952 when the 2 countries have signed a peace treaty, and that's the start of the diplomatic relations between the 2 countries. So next year is going to be the 75th anniversary of the diplomatic relationship, and we've come quite far. So Japan was one of the first countries that also gave yen loan in as back as 1958. So there is a lot in the relationship that's been there, but often we have talked about the 2 countries not living up to the potential in terms of the bilateral relations, economic, security, and among many other things. The 3 takeaways that I sort of took from all of these flurry of meetings, the one that stands out to me is the defense breakthrough. So finally we see there is a potential, a deal about Unicore antenna co-development in India under the Make in India project. So which is breakthrough in my opinion, because Japan for the longest period of time was not interested in defense technology related collaboration with other countries. So we see that pretty much discussed at length. So that's number 1. The second breakthrough that I think, or takeaway that I see, is the economic security. In terms of economic security, the 2 countries have laid out a very clear outline as to what this relationship is going to do in terms of ensuring mitigating the economic security related risks. So there is very clear articulation about the critical minerals, about semiconductors, about advanced manufacturing and pharmaceutical. I would say among a number of different outcomes that we lay out, these are the 4 elements that are that kind of lay the groundwork for the economic security cooperation. Extremely unusual, I would say. If you were to look at all the previous meetings, if you look at the way these documents have been written, there's a lot more intent that you can see this time around. The third aspect of it is a continuation from what we had last year. So one of the unique thing about India and Japan are we have top leadership's annual summit that's going on for almost 20 plus years, first one being in 2006, but this time around, the meeting was 16th summit. It's a very unique phenomena, and it's a very unique arrangement, if I can say. India has only 2 countries with which it holds these annual regular summits, Russia and Japan. In case of Japan, there used to be Russia before the Ukraine invasion, and that apart, there's Australia and South Korea. So it's a very sort of exclusive arrangement that one would say. And so looking at the last year's outcomes, last year's meeting's outcomes, there was one headline figure of 10 trillion yen that was to be invested during a 10 years time period. And so what you find in this particular summit, there is reaffirmation to that investment project. And also they've taken stock at that in the last 1 year, what has been the progress and how that can be speeded up. So one of the key element from the Indian side is it would be support for these investments. So the government is trying to deregulate some of the aspects of it, and also making sure that these projects don't really delay because of the regulatory hurdles. So that's the 3 outcomes, I would say, that are most significant from this summit. That's an important thing to look at. Now, if you were to look at the history of the two leaders, they've had history with the ex-Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. And some people say there is an ideological protege term people associate with Prime Minister Takaichi. And in case of Modi, certainly it can be said that the relationship or the bond he shared with Prime Minister Abe was very unique. And some people say in Prime Minister Modi's diplomatic career, that was the closest relationship he has held. So there is that to begin with. There is similarity in that. The both countries and both leaders, they look at China in a kind of very similar lens. There is very clear articulation about the threat that China poses to both countries. At the same time, both leaders are very pragmatic in ensuring that it does not hurt the trade and economic relations with China, there is a limitation that both countries feel vis-a-vis dependence on China. So that forms the basis of the economic security related arrangement that India and Japan are trying to sort of build. There is a firm eye on China. So there are a lot of those elements. But when it comes to beyond these synergies, and you can look at the meetings that the two leaders have had in the recent past, including the summit that we are talking about, there has been a good chemistry in a lot of those meetings. So on Indian side, there is a realization that finally, because of the global instability, India definitely need a partner, reliable partner. And there has been a lot of talk of the synergy and the two economies and two systems kind of built, and there is a complementarity. India being very strong in the software, Japan being extremely good in and having a pedigree in the manufacturing. And the two things, there has been this complementarity talk about that, but finally it seems we are reaching in that reaching that potential. I think we are taking steps in that direction. So the synergy part seems very clear, but there is, having said that, there are differences in the way the two leaders look at the world. And the prime example is Russia. India definitely has a historical relations. There's a defense relations, which is you can say India is weaning itself off of the dependence, reliance on the defense equipments and from Russia. But at the same time, in the recent past, especially in last 3 years, Indian dependence on the energy imports from Russia has increased. And Japan, on the other hand, has been one of the sanctioned party on Russia. So there is some sort of difference of opinion, but the two countries have chosen not to articulate it in public. We don't know if there has been discussion about it, but clearly from the public pronouncement, it seems Japanese side understand the limitation that Indian economy faces, and therefore there is a mutual understanding about the difference opinion that exists in terms of Russia. The second point, which is slight, I would not call it a friction, but there is a difference of opinion is in terms of technology. Japan has clearly said it very clearly, the high-end technology would be part of the economic security apparatus that Japan is building, and Japan has shown unwillingness to share a lot of that technology for a good reason. India, on the other hand, is looking for technology transfer. And to move up the scale, to move up the economic ladder, India is definitely interested in absorbing, having these technology transfer agreements, and then having an indigenous industry that absorbs those technology. So there is it's not at the top level. The difference is more at the corporate level, at the bureaucratic level. There is a lot of heated sort of discussions on both sides as to what should be the line, how much the technology transfer should happen. So that's probably the philosophical question that will take a while. A prime example is also the Shinkansen that has been building between Mumbai and Ahmedabad in India. And a lot of that discussion also revolves around how much of the manufacturing in future for the future reliance would be done in India by Japanese corporations. And that seems to have been, in the current meeting, in the current summit, there seems to be some impetus in that direction. The Indian Prime Minister has said it very clearly that the extension of the high-speed rail network, the Indian side definitely want Japanese companies to invest in it, which is very unusual. The leaders usually do not have that kind of an offer. So that's the second point of sort of differences, I would say. And the third point talks about the alliances. So India has historically and famously remained non-aligned for a long time, and now there is a new term for it, multi-aligned, which means India wants to have friendship with everyone. And India has avoided being into a hard alliance with any country, Japan being part of the US-led alliance. So that's not really, I would say there is no direct disagreement about that, but that limits the level of partnership that Japan can expect from India, and also India is willing to offer. So there is some level of limits to how far this strategic relationship can go, and that has less to do with the two leaders, but more to do with the historical sort of underpinnings of the two countries. In terms of how the geoeconomics will play and involving these two countries, extremely important countries, we can start from the broader sort of interpretation as to how geostrategic community is looking at this meeting. There is one quick anecdote that I want to sort of add to it. The Indian media has really covered this meeting in quite detail, and there is a lot of positive sort of bonhomie that you would expect on Indian side, but you don't find that kind of coverage in Japan. So there is sort of that might be the background in which we can look at the broader implication. So one prime implication is the institutionalization of China plus one strategy, right? There's been a lot of talk. So when you think about replacing China as a manufacturing hub or a source of critical inputs, it's really hard to imagine any country replacing it. So what you find in a lot of these documents, when I've gone through them in detail, you realize that there is a very clear push towards making India the place where a lot of Japanese companies would get their inputs from. And that you can find in all the, that you find in pharmaceutical, that you will see in the clean energy. And there is a logic behind that. It's because of it's not just the cost, but also the location, the raw material access, all of that is there. So for the first time I see there is an institutionalized mechanism that you find in these documents that's taking shape. So the second thing which has been reiterated sort of many times in the economic security document, which talks about specifically the choke points and the maritime navigation, the freedom for maritime navigation. Both countries depend immensely on the imported energy. And so there are commonalities in that sense. And so document does talk about, and there are quite creative ways that have been proposed. Of course, it's early days, but there are interesting proposals in the document which talk about how to create the long-term self-sustained energy paradigm that would be not just the two countries, but there are other countries that can also have a space, the like-minded countries. So that is the second geoeconomic implication. The third one is about the technology. As I said earlier, There are, in terms of the difference of opinion, maybe technology transfer would not be that easy. But if you look at where India is moving, India is getting a lot of partners that are willing to share technology with it. I think just last week, Indian Prime Minister visited France, and there seems to be a technology transfer that's on card for the latest, very advanced defense equipments. So there seems to be a groundwork that's been laid. When you talk about technology transfer, obviously it has two sort of underlying issues. One is the trust between the two companies, two countries. The second one is the real benefit in sharing that technology and the long-term sort of impact of it, which is also underpinned by the availability of talent, the human resource. And there seems to be a recognition of that. Also, the human resources, we are talking about human resource, there is a very clear recognition from the Japanese side that the Indian engineering talent, for instance, can be a bonus sort of in this relationship. Indian human resource and their access to Japanese companies and access to Japanese market, that is also a discussion that's been ongoing, and they have sort of worked to formalize. There are two sort of provisions that seem to formalize that aspect as well.